Welcome back to Mark Horror Tales, the place where the darkest legends, unexplained mysteries, and terrifying true stories come to life. Tonight's story takes us to a quiet town in West Yorkshire, England, a place where one small house became the center of one of the most terrifying paranormal cases in British history. The address is simple: 30 East Drive. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary brick house on a quiet street, but inside those walls, something terrifying once lived, and some believe it may still be there. This is the story of the Black Monk of Pontefract, the family. In August 1966, the Pritchard family moved into 30 East Drive. Joe Pritchard lived there with his wife Jean, their teenage son Philip, and their daughter Diane. To them, the house seemed perfect. It was located in a peaceful neighborhood, the rent was affordable, and the home looked comfortable for a growing family. The first few days passed normally. Nothing seemed unusual, but within weeks, strange things began happening. The first signs. At first, the events were small, almost easy to ignore. Jean began hearing strange knocking sounds in the kitchen walls. At night, footsteps echoed upstairs, even when everyone was downstairs together. Joe assumed it was the old house settling. Wood expands and contracts. Pipes make noise. Old houses creak. But then the sounds grew louder, more frequent, and impossible to explain. The first incident. One evening, Diane was sitting alone in the living room watching television. Suddenly, a small decorative ornament lifted from the shelf and flew across the room. It smashed against the wall. Diane froze. She stared at the broken pieces on the floor. There was no one near the shelf, no open window, nothing that could have caused it. She ran to the kitchen. "Mum, something just threw the statue." Jean checked the room, but everything was still, silent. The activity escalates over the next few weeks. The disturbances became far worse. Heavy objects began moving on their own. Doors slammed violently. Kitchen chairs slid across the floor. Sometimes the family would hear loud banging sounds inside the walls. Other times, objects flew across rooms without warning. The family started feeling something terrifying, like they were being watched. Diane's room. But the most frightening events always happened in Diane's bedroom. Almost every night, her bed began shaking violently. Sometimes it moved across the floor. Other times it lifted several inches into the air. Diane would wake up screaming. Her parents would rush into the room, but by the time they arrived, everything would suddenly stop. Joe tried holding the bed down one night, but even with his full weight on it, the bed continued shaking, as if something invisible was pushing it. The shadow figure. Then one night, Diane saw something that changed everything. She woke up suddenly around 2 a.m. Someone was standing beside her bed. A tall figure, dressed in long black robes. The figure's face looked pale and distorted. Its eyes seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Diane screamed. Her parents rushed into the room, but the figure had vanished. Yet something remained, a horrible smell, like rotting flesh. The investigators. As the haunting grew worse, the family contacted paranormal investigators. Soon the story spread across Pontefract. Researchers, journalists, and curious neighbors began visiting the house. One of the investigators was Colin Wilson, a well-known British paranormal researcher. During one investigation, something shocking happened. Several witnesses were sitting in the living room discussing the activity. Suddenly, a heavy armchair lifted off the floor and flew across the room. Everyone saw it. No one was touching it. The investigators were stunned. Whatever was inside that house was powerful. The history. Researchers began investigating the land beneath the house, and they discovered something disturbing. Centuries earlier, the area had been connected to a medieval monastery. According to old records, a monk had once lived there, but local legends said the monk had been executed for terrible crimes. Some believed his restless spirit never left the land, and the entity, haunting the house, soon became known as the Black Monk of Pontefract, the most terrifying night. One night, the haunting became almost deadly. Joe Pritchard was asleep when he suddenly woke up unable to move. Something heavy pressed down on his chest. He struggled to breathe. Then he saw it, the same black-robed figure standing beside the bed, slowly. Two invisible hands grabbed his throat. Joe began choking. His wife woke up and screamed. Joe's body suddenly lifted several inches into the air. Then, just as suddenly, the pressure vanished. Joe collapsed back onto the bed, barely able to breathe. The end of the haunting. After years of terrifying activity, the Pritchard family eventually moved out. Soon after they left, the violent disturbances slowly stopped, but the legend of the Black Monk never disappeared. Today, 30 East Drive in Pontefract is considered one of the most haunted houses in Britain. Paranormal investigators still visit the house. Some claim they hear footsteps in empty rooms. Others say objects move by themselves, and, sometimes, late at night, visitors report seeing a tall shadow figure standing at the top of the stairs, watching silently. Outro. So if you ever find yourself walking down East Drive in Pontefract, England, and you see a small brick house with dark windows, you might want to keep walking, because according to many who have visited, the Black Monk may still be there, waiting. Thanks for watching Mark Horror Tales. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more terrifying stories from around the world. And remember, some houses are haunted, but some are never truly empty. Good night.